Huge thank you to Alex McDowell and Helen Berman for joining us. It's very early where they are, so this was fantastic that we were lucky enough to have them. And of course, for those that joined in the Q&A, Alexandra, Brian and Jitin, thank you so much. I think Andrew made a really good point that it was one of the most smoothest Q&As because they had so much to offer and to say, and there was so much engagement from you all. So I'm glad that we were able to stay a little bit longer to give you a little bit more of what you wanted, and a huge thank you to those for spending some time with us. It is the end of day 3. We have explored emergence. Tomorrow we head over to the Beyond community and partners who will be running sessions on topics that are close to their hearts and explore how we can successfully collaborate to rebuild our creative sector. I want to just thank the Beyond team who have curated the programme for the last 3 days, in particular to Anna Hertzberg and Tom Hamilton, who have worked tirelessly over the last months to develop the themes, shape the sessions and engage the incredible lineup of speakers that we've been so lucky to have. A special mention also has to go to Alex Pleasance, my colleague at the Creative Diversity APPG, who curated the Recovery and Build Back Better panels, and a huge thank you to all of them and the rest of the Beyond team for supporting them. Last but by no means least, there is a special treat for all the karaoke fans out there, as there will be a VR karaoke event at 8 PM tonight to celebrate the opening night of Creative China, and you can find out more about this in the chat box. So if some of you just fancy having a bit of a night in and like a little bit of karaoke, please do check that out. Now, tomorrow, today, of course, we looked at, what was coming out of the chaos and what was some of the key insights that we can really rely on, what tools, skills, support and thinking are needed to drive the next stage of development. And I've summarised just some things that really stood out for me today. Of course, we started off today with the brilliant keynote from Brenda Romero, who discussed the metaverse and touched on representation and reminded us to challenge some of the themes, influence representation, including misogyny and bias towards particular individuals and other groups, if you like, that are groups or minority groups that are othered, and the representation of Black and disabled, or in particular same-sex partnerships that we see sometimes in the representation and presentation within the gaming industry. Of course, then we heard from Deepa, who took us through Tech for Good, and a brilliant way of explaining how technology was helping to increase access and inclusion for all, in particular those with physical disabilities, and also those with neurodiverse disabilities, including dyslexia and autism, and mix that in there with some of the social action, very important social action initiatives that she shared. Then we kind of went into the recovery phase, and some of the key learnings I took from that really was just to think about where we look for our diverse talent and to challenge where we're looking, how we're engaging with them, and not give ourselves too much, well, any room really for excuses around some of the common ones that we hear, such as we can't find the talent. I think there's a very good point made in our recovery discussion earlier today. And actually, when we think about emergence and we wonder how will we build back better, it's really quite important that we focus on what we stopped doing. And so being really human about it and thinking what actually is preventing us from moving forward. Why don't we stop doing some of those things and completely change the dial and start doing things that we've not done before? Perhaps we'll see some of the changes that we wish to see across the industry. And then finally, just a couple of points that I thought were worth sharing was just in terms of us building our relationship with the government and policymakers and getting them to support the creative industry and professionals and innovators. Summed up quite nicely earlier on, it was about providing more funding and more pots of money to be able to help to push on some of the plans that others have to see us moving into a new and refreshed, better creative industry that is absolutely much more inclusive. Also, data comes up quite a lot in conferences, but actually I think it really rung true today, and it became quite a prominent part of the Building Back Better discussion, actually, where there was a focus on the fact that without having any of this data that collects some of the representation and identity of key people across the industry, we'll never really get a clear picture of the experiences of particular groups and understand what barriers they face and some of the equity that they require in order for us to challenge that. So something around trying to find a way to really almost push for a almost compulsory way of collecting data in some way, shape or form. I know even that probably raises some eyebrows around it being compulsory. Apprenticeships, I don't think we may be using them to as much of an extent as we possibly could have, and I think that was raised really nicely by Kish in the session earlier. And one thing that seems to come through and been a bit of a thread throughout the whole day today really has been around unconscious bias training and getting some of the individuals to think about who is in their teams and who we're working with them to make sure that our content, our ideas and our research actually is including everyone and is reflecting the brilliant and diverse society that we have. So I don't know about you, but I feel pretty full up from today. But again, I am absolutely looking forward to tomorrow. So tomorrow we are looking at the theme of collaboration. Of course, we have the Creative China stage, and we are focusing on how we can build back better, stronger and resilient. What practical steps do we need to take to ensure that there is real focus going forward on diversity and inclusion, and what creative R&D programs, funding and support is available to see us through into this next phase. So without, I won't keep you any longer, but I know some of you will go off now to have some karaoke, well, VR karaoke, but otherwise enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you tomorrow bright and early again for day 4 of the Beyond Conference 2020.